Please listen carefully.
Hello, universe. Welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Summers McKay.
And I'm Kristy Jansen, and we are part of the hilarious team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to help make it one focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories. Yes, believe it or not, we manage to find positive news stories all 7 days of every week.
Even when it's really hard.
I know, even when it's really hard. Written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And hopefully, Kristy, soon enough, being sent via chat. I'm going to tell you about that later. Anyway, we are sharing these solutions in our commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy, sitting in your car waiting for your COVID test-worthy podcast. Today is Thursday, the 12th of August, 2021. Hi.
Hi. Yeah.
All right.
COVID testing. I got mine yesterday and found out I was fine after a scare. Someone in my office who's been vaccinated, who I was near last week before she had any symptoms, but she tested positive after having a cold for a week. She was like, yeah, I better get tested. And she did. She was COVID positive. So of course I had to get tested and I'm fine. But yeah,
it's
breakthroughs happen.
Breakthrough cases. I think people are really super duper stressed right now, huh?
Yeah.
You know, people don't come to, and as an editorial team, we actually talked about this, right? People come to the Optimist Daily to think about and read other things and to feel positive about solutions and to be able to have a different dialogue than they may be experiencing everywhere on social media. And whether it's, resignations of the latest misogynistic leader who had terrible behavior, or it is COVID testing. That's not what people are coming to the Optimist Daily for. But I think folks who listen to the Optimist Daily Update know that you and I are both very real people with very real challenges. And like you, it just seems like every other week I am having a COVID scare with my daughter at school because we're in a communal environment. We just had another email go out that there was a positive COVID case on campus, not in her classroom, but in the classroom next to hers. We're going to have to go get tested and all of this. And, I'm actually going on vacation today. My family and I are taking 3 days to go celebrate my husband's 50th birthday and my husband and my 6th wedding anniversary. We're going to San Antonio and to a big outdoor resort. And we're going to get COVID tests on our way out of town because that's what you do, I guess, now.
That's the new family fun, right? Is the family that tests together stays together.
Exactly. We're actually taking 2 cars because we are traveling with the dog. So we've got 3 kids, a dog, 2 adults. We're taking 2 cars. We are literally coming in a caravan through CVS to get our COVID test. And we're also getting antibody tests because we want to figure out whether or not we've had a recent strain. And I don't know. This is crazy town. I just want fun and play. I just want stuff that makes me think about other things.
Okay,
what else is there in the world or universe to be thinking about, Kristy?
Yeah. Let's look at our stories today because they're actually kind of fun, and it's definitely a break from the stressful, chaotic news. It's not about the climate, which we have to pay attention to. It's not about COVID, but rather the headline that I decided to highlight today on Thursday's pod which is on one of our top stories for the day: the case for magic mushrooms in space, according to science. And I just had to talk about this story. As Summer said, it's like the most Kristy article we could ever have imagined.
Right, exactly. Mushrooms,
magic mushrooms, space.
I mean, all we need to do is figure out how to put a sailing ship.
Right, exactly.
And I guess that's what the mushrooms might help do.
Maybe, but all of us in this last year have experienced what our astronaut friends have experienced, which is not something that we've necessarily had to experience. I'm talking about loneliness. I'm talking about being socially distant from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
That feeling of being estranged from a world we once felt really deeply connected to, and the social world. And what it's like to be an astronaut in space is definitely something that those men and women, those brave frontier space nauts have done. But being forced to deal with extended periods of limited social contact, which is a kind of the bubble of team members aboard the spaceship. We all know how that kind of a limited social world can lead to depression, downcast feeling, that sense of stir craziness, even just a few bad days. Mm-hmm. So my college's Paul Stamets, who's one of the most well-known, and he's just a really interesting man who's made it his life's work to study mushrooms and mycology in all its different levels. He's suggesting to Scientific American that when astronauts are feeling lonely, traumatized, or sad, perhaps they should turn to psychedelic mushrooms for a bit of a pick-me-up, or rather a different perspective, right? Mm-hmm. It may sound outlandish, and if you're in space, you're not on land anyway, but there's quite a bit of evidence that demonstrates that psilocybin, which is the active ingredient in psychedelic mushrooms, does have so many interesting health benefits, mental health benefits. And there's more and more research talking about how under carefully controlled conditions, taking psilocybin can really help shift your perspective. And so that's what Stamets is suggesting, is that perhaps and this is a quote from the article that this was sourced from, but under carefully controlled conditions, our astronauts being able to take psilocybin in space and look at the universe and not feel distant and alone, but rather feel like they're a part of this giant consciousness, would maybe give them a better frame of mind, psychologically and emotionally, to work with other astronauts and stay on mission. And that is what psilocybin has been shown to do. It helps us feel connected to the greater whole. And that's sort of the magic of the mushrooms. He's actually not just saying, let's give our astronauts magic mushrooms. He's also talking about ways that NASA is funding his research, so that because they're investigating all the potential ways that mushrooms and mycelium can facilitate life in space. This includes constructing shelters out of fungus and helping to terraform extraterrestrial environments with the help of mushrooms' ability to break down regolith into farmable soil. So that's if we do end up really going to Mars or even working on the moon, that might be something that ends up going out there. Anyway, I just love this article because I like thinking about space and magic mushrooms and the mental health, the mind expanding benefits that those kinds of experiences might have. Now, full disclosure, I've never personally experimented with this yet, but perhaps I will someday.
Yes. I think that, this is a delicate conversation, right? The idea of introducing, and we've covered psilocybins and magic mushrooms a ton on the Optimist Daily, because there is huge opportunity for expansive growth, right? And healing. And we know that there is proof that magic mushrooms can do a lot of good for the brain. It's also tricky because people think of magic mushrooms as, right, like a bunch of, stoner folks out in the woods making terrible choices. And so what I like about this conversation is that it's recognizing that even astronauts who could be about as science as possible, right? These are folks who have clearly been hyper educated, focused, understand, right? They can benefit from it. So it sort of strips out some of the negativity that you might associate with magic mushrooms, right? And if astronauts are using them, they're not just, stoners in the backwoods. This is really, really valuable information. So I like this story, and I like the evolution in the conversation. And there was recently, not to bring up bad old news, but there was an Olympic athlete who was disqualified from competing because she broke the rules with using cannabis. But there are athletes every day who are using alcohol or other intoxicants. And so who's to say that cannabis or magic mushrooms is any better or worse for the body? And in fact, we know that magic mushrooms, and in many cases cannabis, are better for the body than the glass of wine that I legally drink every night.
Several times. Yeah. But
several times every night. Maybe not several, sometimes several, but it depends on if I've had a fun day doing what my story talks about.
Doing what? Okay, so what's your headline today?
All right. So I am totally shifting gears here, and we're going straight into the playground with my headline. Yay, kids. Okay. Headline reads, "Play is powerful. How to make the most of children's free playtime." If you're a mom like me, new at this whole gig, figuring out how to effectively play with your child can be a little, I don't know, it can be a little confusing if you're an aunt or an uncle or whatever. If you just don't yet know how to play with little kids, it can be really challenging. This is a fantastic guide that helps us understand ways to play with children, whether they're going back to school or engaging in remote education, basically helping them adjust into the real world more frequently. There are 5 free play tips shown here by the University of South Carolina's play therapy professor, Jessie D. Guest. Now, number 1, and I love this one, it's get on children's level. That means plop your buns down on the floor and play. It's so important. Caregivers and parents often forget that we spend a lot of time hovering above our children and not getting right down there on their level. And when you're on their level, and I know, Kristy, you do this with your nephew and the darling children, and even just watching you play with Brennan, you just plopped your bum right down on the floor and got right eye to eye with her, and it makes such a difference. It really creates more of a collaborative environment where both parties are engaging in play, and it actually helps the parents or caregivers engage better. Let the children take the lead. So it's important to have structured options, but whether it's a puzzle or a coloring book, it's important to let the child decide how they're going to play with it. So in my case, my daughter colors on her puzzles or tears on her coloring books. But guess what? They're all toys. It doesn't matter. There's not a proper way when you are having free time to follow the rules. Color outside the lines or color on the puzzle. Demonstrate interest. And this is fun. You get to just ask them questions. What are you playing with? What do you see on this paper? What do you see in this puzzle? Why are you eating the block? But really just engaging with them. Don't just watch. Let them take the lead, but then talk to them about what they're doing. Set limits. It's really important to keep a child safe. So throwing toys can be dangerous, making sure that they are choosing things that are safe, and finding a way and teaching them ways to play with toys safely. And then actually be consistent, which I think is fun. Set time and space where you know you're going to do a certain thing with your child. We have toys in different rooms through our house, and Brennan knows that when it's time for a tea party, we're going to go sit in a particular room on the rug, and she'll pull out her little tea set, and that is where we have the tea party play. And we're sitting down with her, and she's taking the lead, but she does know that that's structure, and she knows it's going to come right before dinner time, and so it gives her the opportunity of something to look forward to. So I don't know. I mean, I know we're looking ahead at the challenge for this upcoming weekend, and I think you and Amelia will pick what you're going to do because Amelia's going to sit in for me tomorrow. But I think I'm going to just, I'm going to play with my daughter. That's going to be my challenge this vacation weekend after we get our COVID tests and find out we're allowed to continue on our journey to San Antonio. So, Kristy, do we have headlines for tomorrow? We've got a couple others, but we're sort of running out of time, aren't we?
We are, yeah. And I just like this. I think the other thing that's neat about play that us adults can remember, if we get down with our kids or our nephews, even if they're not our own children, and play with them, it's kind of neat to get reconnected with just letting your mind go. And so this is kind of links to me to the trips we can take when we really get connected to our imagination, that maybe magic mushrooms can help, or maybe playing with a 3-year-old can help. It just kind of opens up
Probably don't do them simultaneously.
Probably not. Yeah. Definitely don't do them simultaneously.
Yeah.
There's 2 other stories which we almost chose. There's one with some tips about better sleep based on what Olympians do, and also a German farm that's demonstrating the dual benefits of agrivoltaic systems. That's where you have solar and agriculture connected. But we can't get into those because we don't have time. So let's close this up and thank you.
I gotta go get some tests. I gotta go get on the road.
Yeah.
I got places to be, tests to take.
Thanks everybody for listening to today's Optimist Daily Update. We promise to keep doing this show and keep giving you stories. Go check them out on theoptimistdaily.com and see how you can participate in the changing world and ensure it's changed for the good for all of us. We're going to do what we can to keep bringing you the current events, but also some of the solutions around the current events, offering accurate sources, legitimate sources, and keeping you informed with the information you need most to chart new paths for all of us. And if you aren't already an emissary and you love what the Optimist Daily is doing, please go on to theoptimistdaily.com and sign up as an emissary. And for just $5 a month, or, whatever you feel like you can do, support reader-funded independent journalism and help be a part of the solution-changing consciousness. And keep the Optimist Daily free for everybody, supported by those of us who have the means and the ability to do so. Thanks, everybody, for listening. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow, or at least I will, with more solutions.
All right, guys. Take care. See you next week.